Hello and welcome back to my garage. In today's video I'm going to talk about you how to, well, upgrade your brakes, and not in a manner of buying a kit and installing it, but how to make a brake kit yourself. And no, this isn't a video about how exactly you are going to do it on your specific car, but I hopefully can get you some tools to, well, get started, or maybe I'm getting you a bit hyped to, well, at least try for yourself. In another video of mine I already showed you how I upgrade my KE10 brakes to KE30 brakes. That wasn't a big of a hassle, no fabrication or something, just some other bearings and it just fits in its place. After that I found a complete package, and that I mean is a disc rotor with a caliper that fitted my wheel. The problem is that I have a 13-inch wheel, and of course that's already a small space, but the problem is I have a pretty wide wheel with a, yeah, I know it's quite dirty, but that happens in the shop, where I have a big lip. And what they do when you have a big lip is to get this notch out of the way, so they move it to the back. But because they move it to the back, you use this notch to install your tire. If you don't have this, then placing a tire will be a nightmare or even impossible. But because of that, the inner space is even more, smaller than your typical 13-inch. So in my case it's about 28 centimeters. If you would get a normal 13-inch wheel, then it should be about 31 something if I measure this inside. So that's quite a big gap. So I did not have a lot of choice, so the KE30 brakes were just a good solution for now. But just a little bit of a recap. This is where we started with. This is a KE10 drum, and this is a drum brake, of course. We have to put this to the side because we didn't want to use that. A simple solution for me was to go with a KE11, or in this case this is a KE17 strut. As you can see, it's also fitted with a disc brake, but as you can see it's really tiny. It is about 19-ish centimeters, so it's really tiny. So we upgraded it to a KE30, and the KE30 disc is about 21.5, but in comparison with the KE17 one, it's quite a bit bigger. But I found something else. I found this. And if I put it on top of each other, it is quite a bit bigger. This one is about, I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 23. Well, 23.5. So it's quite a bit bigger. And also it is vented. So how I came with this brake? Well, I had a Renault Clio in the shop. It was not my mom's car in this case, but someone else's car. And had this brake package on it with, of course, the caliper. It looked so tiny, I thought, well, maybe I can fit it on with my rim. So that is what I did. I took my rim, put it on the car. Of course, it did not fit the stud, but I did have some room, so I thought this is a winner, at least something to dive into. I ordered some cheap rotors. These maybe are 10 bucks each, just for mock-up, and after it does work, then I'm going to buy some decent rotors. And there is also a other big plus, is this little guy has a bigger brother. And as you can see, this one is also a quite bigger. And this one is about 25.6. Well, the car came with well, the smaller rotors, also solid rotors, but that's something we're not going to get into, because then we could just go with the KE10 ones. So, why is it interesting? Well, first of all, this set uses the same caliper. The only difference is that the saddle, that is the caliper hangs into it, is, well, of course, a little bit longer. But it uses the same pattern, so in theory, if you wanted to upgrade your Clio brakes, you could get a halter from a bigger rotor, and of course then install your bigger rotor. I wasn't able to fit into the rim. It's just not possible. But if I wanted to ever go to 14s, then this is definitely a good option. But for now, this one is going aside. So the first thing, of course, what I did was put the caliper on it and just lower it down into the wheel and just have a little wiggle around if I had enough space, and well, that I had. But then, of course, the first thing, set this aside. So the first thing I did was get the hub to its bare minimal. Wanted to install the other brake. But there is a problem. The center hole of this brake is smaller than the hole in the, well, the KE10 brakes. So the first thing what I did was go on the internet and look the specifications of this brake disc. Of course, you can just take your caliper, take a measurement, and, well, drill this hole to size. But most of the times you can find the measurements on the internet. That is what I would advise you also to do. Oh, before I'm going any further, you can mismatch disc brakes and calipers to suit your needs, but that definitely has to be your last resort. Don't do that. It's just not worth your time. Just try to find something else. If you are not able to get it, then of course by all means, but if you want to save yourself some trouble, stick with a complete package. So disc brake with caliper. So what I did was took, of course, the disc brake to the lathe, and as you can see, it just fitted quite nicely. But of course, these holes did not line up with these holes. These are 100 millimeters apart, and I do believe these were 60 millimeters apart. Also, that was something I just could get from the diagrams of the manufacturer. So what I did, I put some holes in it, and voila, I have a complete package. So what I could do is just put bolts in here with a washer and a nut behind it, and done. It didn't feel right. So what I did, I 3D printed a ring with, of course, those 4 holes, and these 2 holes are so I could put them in its place with these. And after I did that, then I could just install it like so on the hub. But because this was a very flimsy one, but the other one that I printed I cannot find. But for the idea, it is just good enough. And that's why 3D printing is really awesome. These holes, of course, I want to have in the right place. So what I did was also on the 3D printer, I made a template for the brake disc. So I could just put it in right so. These holes are for marking, so I could get that punch and just punch them right in here so they are marked correctly. I'm now doing it from the back. I have a left rotor and a right rotor, and that has to do with the amount of meat that is left on these holes. And also that's why I made this ring at the back, so there is just more clamping force, and that is what you see here. So, but now of course we have a little bit of more of a tricky thing, and that is to make this out of aluminum. Because it's round, it's pretty easy to whip up with on a lathe. And I do know that most of you don't have that, so I will show you a other method how you can create one of these rings. And it doesn't say that, of course, you need one of these rings for your build, but in this case I definitely need one of these. I already, of course, made one just on the lathe, and it just fits right on here, and I could just bolt it. But also what I did was made a template. So what we're going to do now is make one of these. I will make it on a lathe, but I will show you how to make one if you don't have a lathe. And then again, of course, I do know that most of you guys don't have a 3D printer. Don't worry, just make it up into CAD. And I do know that most of you don't know how CAD works. Well, pencil and paper also just work fine. You don't have to make it in CAD or something. You can just use your regular drawing program to make it and just print it. And And next up are the coils itself. Sometimes these things are really a nightmare to get in. What I found handy was to pinch them at the top and just keep them there. And then twist it a little bit, so they get a bit smaller at the bottom. And then most of the time you can get them in. So I leave the sides off a little bit so it's a bit easier to turn. What I also printed is a jig. And some of you out there maybe are concerned if it works. Well, it does work. Maybe it's not the best solution, but for this it's just fine. After I printed this, the only thing I did was put it in the lathe and just skimmed it so it's flat. I made a new backplate, and this one is working just fine. The reason of the chatter, I think, was the backplate, and I made a new one that has a bigger shaft at the back. Yeah, I know I broke this one, and doesn't have this deep of a valley. And also I put in some more infill, so it's a lot sturdier. Not that this one isn't sturdier. But it looks like, all in all, it does help, and it is now working just fine. Now we can be pretty proud of ourselves. It's looking quite nice. And now we have two of these. This is, of course, the easy part. So let's mount it. These holes are definitely not necessary. It is just something that I think looks nice, but was definitely not needed for this job. So it's now all centered in there. And now we can put it on the hub. So let's see how it looks. Next up we have, of course, the bracket itself, and that has to be attached to the struts in one way or another. It is, as you can see, no rocket science, that you're definitely not on the same plane as this strut thing is. So we are not able to make just a single plate to here. Also, it will be really thin, so that's probably also a no-no. But as you can see, it is somewhere in the negative. So yeah, I don't have a CNC machine, so I have to do it with the stuff I have. So I must make it out of two pieces. One piece that is going on top of here, and the second piece that is going on the back side of the other thing. The first thing what we need to do is make something like a disc that's sitting on here. First thing what I did, of course, was measure the distance between the holes. I made a picture of it with my phone and uploaded it to my computer, and I could design the whole thing. But because I didn't have a 3D printer back then, I just printed out of a piece of paper, put it on cardboard, and just get a little bit of a look if it fits. Yes, this is when you get a 3D printer. So these are all different iterations of the problem I had. I do believe that these white ones were the first I printed. As you can see, it is fitting pretty nicely in there. But of course it's already a lot further in the process than that we are right now. But as you can see, I just used a round piece, and that is one of the things that I needed for my final design also, because this is the second piece. As you can see, I also made a bit of a relief right here, and the reason is that I found out that, and the reason why is this thing. It just came too close to the plate and it was rubbing, so I made a bit of a relief in here. And after that, it just fits. So I could bolt this thing down and put this thing on there. But as you can see, I still have a bit of a gap. So that is where our second plate comes in. This is one of the first second plates I made. It has a bit of a weird shape, but that is because we want to follow the contour of the flange. So this one goes here, and I could put this one at the top. And I put holes in here, so I could bolt it together, just like so. Of course, this is one of the first iterations, and I did make some improvements on the whole thing. And these are the final versions. As you can see, this one is following the contour of the arm. Not precise, but close enough. Also, I made some countersunk holes in here, so that it's sitting here flush in there. But also for those things, I made some templates. And this is of course of that hook thing, and this is of that other plate. And just be careful, in my case there is a right and a left side. So I must be sure that I don't make two the same. This one is bidirectional, so that doesn't matter. I also made this thing with a little handle on there. And also this thing with a handle. And the left and the right side. But these come later. I also molded up this thing. And this is what I consider to be a production unit. I did consider it for a while to just send this off to someone and get it machined. But then again, machining is pretty expensive. One benefit of this is bidirectional, so I could use it on the left side of the car, but also on the right side of the car. So that's a plus. Also, this will work on the KE30, I know for sure. But then again, I don't have a KE30, I have a KE10. But back to the story, I do believe I must pay, if I wanted two of these, I think around a 200 euros, I think, 100 euros each. For only two, that is pretty expensive. Of course, if I did order, let's say, 10 pair, then yeah, it is a lot cheaper. And if you're a guy like me that has more time than money, then this is the route to go. Also, I'm going to make it out of 15 mil instead of 10. I already made one out of 10. So this is the end result. But I decided to make it 15. I do think that this is strong enough, but a little bit more assurance. This is what they call a counterbore bit. You can get them in different sizes. These fit just nicely into these holes. You can get these drills from your regular China place. They just work really awesome. And as you can see, it drops just right in. It is nice and flush. So let's do the other ones also. So the first thing I'm going to do is size that hole. And of course make the step in there. This is my routing table. It's just something I cobbled together just for this job. So now you can see why I needed these bolts to be counterbored. So I have a flat surface that I can work with. And that is also the reason why I needed this strange little puck or template. So I can hold it together without getting in the way of that router bit. It's just a normal wood router with a carbide tool bit. Of course this is normally only used for wood, but because it's carbide it's definitely going to work. The only problem is it's just a tooth flute, and that tooth flute is let's say sometimes a little bit of sketchy. If you're not getting the material in there at a good angle, it's going to be throwing it out, and that can be and that can be dangerous, of course. So it would be better if I get a 3 flute or maybe even a 4 flute one. But this is what I have, and this is what works. As you can see, I already done a little bit. I already did the other one. What I'm definitely not able to do is these kind of passes in one try. What you want to do is just get a rough cut and keep about 1 millimeter from the edge, and then the last pass very slowly, and of course use a lot of lubricant, and DW40 for aluminum is really a good choice. So keep it good lubricated and then you get a nice finish. Of course I'm hearing you say, yeah, but we don't have a 3D printer. Yeah, sure, that is a problem. But then again, you can make it out of wood. I did it in the past like that. A 3D printer is definitely going to speed up things. But if you don't have that, then make it out of wood. Well, you have a nice little template. As you can see, it looks pretty decent, but you probably also see there is a lot of jitterish. But have a good look at the mold itself. So it just copied it how it came out of the 3D printer. So I do think if I smooth this out a little bit more, then it also will result in that in the part. But other than that, it does definitely look not bad. As you can see, probably is this the start and stop point of the 3D printer, and as you can see, it just copied it. I smoothed it out now a little bit with some sandpaper. It's not perfect, but let's see if it helps. But that is looking 10 times better than it was. Well, this is really acceptable. Don't you think? A little bit of hand CNC. that is how I made these brakes work on the Toyota Corolla. I know it's not an in-depth video about how to make your own brake system, but hopefully the techniques I used will help you in your own quest to, well, get your own brakes done. And to be honest, it looks really good. Especially with the hand CNCing, it looks just like a machine part, and that is what of course we want. There is maybe one thing I want to change, and that is that hook bracket at the back. I want to probably make it out of 60mm instead of 15. And the reason is that the caliper is not really in the center right now. One of the reasons is that the rotor I used for mock-up is a little bit different than the Brembos I use now. And if I just that 1mm, I get it really in the center. Not that it's rubbing right now, and I think it's not going to be any harm, but that is maybe something I want to change later on. But other than that, I am extremely happy how it turned out. It looks and feels like a professional machine part, and of course that is something we all can appreciate. Well guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, or at least learned something from it, and if you did, please give it a like. If you want to follow me around, you know what to do, and I will see you next time. There is only one thing left to do. Wheel party!